Hey everyone, before we dive in, just a quick note. The views and opinions shared by our guests on Reset Critical are their own and don't necessarily reflect those of the institutions they represent, the host, producers, or any of our partners or sponsors. Some episodes touch on sensitive topics, so listener discretion is advised. Hi everybody, this is Reset Critical. I am your host Niaz Kasravi, and we are here as always to bring some sanity and level set some of the conversations and public discourse that have gone totally off the rail, but they involve a lot of important issues that impact us on a daily basis. Today we're going to talk about a subject that I and probably many people don't know about, but it has become part of our daily reality, seems like almost overnight, and that is artificial intelligence, or AI. Some people say it is the best and most ingenious invention of mankind. Some people say it's the most dangerous creation that can take over all of our jobs someday and maybe even wipe us all off the face of the earth. While at the same time, since it's become part of the public toolbox, it's become something that's been very helpful to support people in doing their day-to-day tasks and really being more efficient. No matter how we feel about it, artificial intelligence is here to stay. We can't ignore it. We have to know about it, and we have to engage with it. So to help us have that conversation around AI and related issues, I am joined by Nadia Dalvari, who is an accomplished attorney whose work resides at the intersection of entertainment, media, and technology. She works across multiple platforms, including film, television, documentaries, new media, music, fashion, and technology. She's also served as a legal counsel for numerous acclaimed projects and has been featured as a legal expert on a wide range of platforms and outlets across the country. Nadia also plays a leading role in various film festivals, nonprofit cultural organizations, and humanitarian organizations, including the Rudaki Orchestra and the World Children's Transplant Fund. Welcome, Nadia.
Thank you for having me, Nia.
Thank you for being with us. I know you are a very busy person, so I really appreciate your insight today. Let's start off the bat with the general question.
Sure.
Around what should people be concerned about when using AI? What are some of the things we should be using it for, and what are some of the things maybe we shouldn't be using it for?
So that's a loaded question. Depends on who you ask, right? But let's approach that as a member of the general public. While we are all getting excited and we think, oh my gosh, I can sit there and engage with this AI, and you hear about people even using it as a therapist and telling it all their stories and all their information, and the chat box gives you answers. It's really important to keep in mind that this information may not be private. So it might somehow find its way in, of course, so let's start. That kind of leads itself to data and privacy.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important to keep in mind that all of our information, anything that we've ever posted publicly, anywhere on any platform, has been used at some point to train the AI, large language models. So that isn't something to be mindful of. And then go ahead.
What's a language model before we get into it? Because I think a lot of people who are not in the industry or just lay people just using
LLM.
Yeah.
It's a large language model.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, these chatbots or these AI tools that we're all familiar with right now are large language models that use all the information that is in public domain or not to train them. And then they use that information to generate the answers and responses and what we ask them to do. And that's actually a big part of this, we're going to get into that. It leads itself to the other issue that a lot of the information that is used to train these machines are not licensed. So there are a number of lawsuits right now from major studios suing various platforms and authors suing the platforms, different various creatives suing the platforms because the data that was used to train it was not licensed. And then that also lends itself to another issue. If you're using it to create a creative work or any kind of output, you have to be mindful that the information that you're using may not be clean because it's been scraping the internet to train itself, and the output may not be product that has been properly licensed.
So then you're responsible for using unlicensed work in whatever it is that you're creating.
That's right.
You're legally
Right.
liable
That's
for it.
right. That's right. And also, another issue that kind of blends into this is copyright, which is what we use to protect creative output, has to be created by a human. So you can't copyright work that is entirely generated by AI, artificial intelligence. There's a famous case where a monkey took a photograph in the wild of a photographer that was there and it took a selfie of itself, and then they wanted to copyright that, but that can't be copyrighted because it was not created by a human.
It was created by a monkey.
By
This
a
is
monkey.
An actual case. This is
Yes,
fascinating.
it's fascinating.
Is it old?
Not that old, but yeah.
It gives us a lesson for AI.
Right. It's a reference point. So AI is not a human. It's not original work created by you. And then if you are going to use AI in your creation, you have to disclose it to the Copyright Office and kind of describe what parts and to what extent it was not created by you. And if it's too much generated by AI, then it cannot be copyrighted.
So this doesn't just concern people in the entertainment industry and creatives, because I know people in the advocacy space, in the communications space, public speakers, you name it,
Healthcare,
every field.
insurance, everybody. It's interesting. I always feel like creatives are always at the precipice of new technologies and whatever comes up at the forefront. And then I started out with the guilds a few years ago going on strikes because that was one of the issues that they were concerned about, the rise of AI.
And AI basically was replacing them in movies and media platforms, basically.
Well,
is that what was happening?
That is the latest development with Tilly, but it didn't, and is part of it, but even more than that, using what we call one picture deal. You license or you get paid to do a work, and then your image is stored in digital print, and then it can be repurposed with deepfakes, for example, for something else, but you haven't been paid for it. So that's another example. Without your knowledge and your consent, and altered with AI without your knowledge and consent. So these are all concerns of the people in the creative world. Now, there was just a case about insurance companies using AI to determine who gets coverage and who doesn't get coverage. Imagine AI making that decision, and AI is as good as the information that has been fed into it. So if it's been trained on biased information, it's not going to be neutral when it makes those decisions. It's only as good as what us humans put out. And then also there is a concern with it when banking, making decisions on who gets a loan, who doesn't get a loan. So these are things that affect all of us. And we have to be very conscientious about it and demand of our lawmakers to put the guardrails on. And we're only at the beginning stage, right?
Yep.
With the different AI technologies. We're at the LLM stage. Then we have the general intelligence capability. That's the next stage where it becomes smarter and it starts thinking like us humans. And then, of course, super intelligence, right? It surpasses us. So we have to be aware of what's going on and start making laws.
Yeah, yeah, and we're going to get there. But so many good points you made, and I want to just uplift some of them and ask you questions around them. So let's say I'm not an entertainer. I didn't have any issues that the entertainment world had when they went on strike, like personally. But I know people who are, let's say, potentially using AI to write their memoirs or write their book. So you type in a prompt into AI and you say, can you please summarize every major book that has made the top, list for readers around people in the diaspora in the US, for example, because you got to do your lit review before you write your actual book. And so you ask AI to do that, right? And then you ask AI, okay, these are the points I want to make in my book. Can you come up with an outline and then a draft? And please incorporate some of these other memoirs that you've summarized for me. Is that kosher?
I can respond to that on many different levels. Okay. So first of all, how do you want to repeat what everybody else did, or do you want to be original?
I think the point, and I'm just making this up, is that instead of reading 500 books, I know what I want to say, but I got to see what's out there as well. And then maybe I've read 5 of the books, but there's 25 books that I should have read because they're around the same topic. But so I'm using AI to summarize what in the past people used to do on their own. And then you have an outline, but you know what you're going to say. So it's not completely unoriginal. You're just using AI to do some of that research that you or maybe an intern or something would do. And then you would write an outline and then you would write a draft. But so, a lot of these steps can now be outsourced to an AI platform.
Right.
Or I know people who are like, I'm being paid to write op-eds and I'm just punching what I like my main points into AI and saying, can you give me like a 500 word op-ed on this issue, making points A, B, C, D.
Okay. So the question now changed. 2 different questions you just asked me in the second version of your question.
Yeah, you know why? Because I think there's so much confusion, even in my head. I'll be the first to know I don't know much about this field. So I'm not even sure I'm asking.
I don't think
the right
anybody
question
really does. I'm not sure that I'm an expert. I'm not an AI engineer or by any stretch of the imagination.
But you know the legalities. It would be a very different conversation with someone who's like writing code and working on this platform. But I specifically wanted to have a conversation with you because you understand the boundaries, the gray areas, and the things that are red flags for everyday people who are using this tool.
So let's talk about the first question concerning you and your book, which I would be delighted to hear about it.
It's not my book.
Please tell us when it's coming out.
When it comes out, I will write it.
Okay. Now in that example, you're using AI for research. You would have used Google in the same way to research. Give me the top 10 books that are about biographies of female activists in North America or in the US. So that's a search engine or a tool for research.
Like a more evolved Google.
Yes. An interact one. So that's perfectly fine. You're doing your research. You're just asking it to give you a list and you study it and okay. So in the other version, when you're asking it to actually write your op-ed, now is plagiarism. You have to say that it was created by AI. There are laws that require you to do that. And secondly, you need to fact check it to make sure it's not hallucinating. We hear I'm sure you've heard about these lawyers that are being sanctioned by the various bars for briefs that have been written by AI with cases that don't exist, AI hallucinations, right? So that becomes a little tricky. You have to be careful that you fact check it, and then you want it to be a creation by you. If you're using it for your op-ed, if you're using it to search the news, to get facts, to find out what's happened, and then you use that information to write your own op-ed, that's fine. It's similar to what you said.
What if you ask it to write something and then you edit it? That's still plagiarism.
Okay, so that is a really good question. That brings us to the first point of what can be copyrighted and what can't. And if you have, it's a matter of degrees of how much editing it's done and how much do you change it. And then you still have to say that this portion was done by AI and this portion was done by me. So the more, of course, you change it, the more you change the character. And there are also softwares that can detect if something's been generated by AI, there's specific characteristics. Although they're not 100% accurate, but there are out there. So I would caution anybody who is doing that.
Yeah.
And then also your work goes into that engine and is helping train that engine, and it becomes public information. Probably don't want that either. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people probably say, who's going to know? Right? I'm going to edit this, but there's software that can detect it. And even if that fails, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that because this is a public platform, the legal system can actually subpoena your records and see that you asked ChatGPT or Google Gemini or whatever platform you use to actually create this writing that you're claiming was not
Wasn't
right?
there a case about the fires in Palisades where the ChatGPT conversations of the arsonist was used
yes.
in the criminal case?
There is a case like, was it the fire?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So what we put out there,
It's not private.
and it can very easily be accessed.
Yeah, it's not private. What you're putting, I'm not sure how easy it is, but it's not private. It's not yours.
Yeah, that is a very important point. And then add on top of that, using stuff that's just made up, using stuff that is not licensed, using stuff that is just fake, all of those things.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not this panacea that everybody's making it out to be.
Do you think people who are afraid of it are overreacting? I remember, I'm old enough to remember, this is me dating myself, but when I started writing papers, I was using a typewriter. And then when we got a computer, I was just starting college and it was a big clunky thing. And then Google came about and people thought, this is going to change humanity for the worse. It's
Internet,
over.
year
The
2000.
Internet and Google, internet, not Google. Yeah. And there was a lot of panic about it. And then we learned to live with it. We learned how to use it. There were regulations and laws passed around it. Do you think people are overreacting with AI, or do you think this is just another iteration of this generation's internet?
I thought about that, and I think that to some extent, yes, and to some extent, no. In that if it goes to the second and third stage that we just described, and also I was listening to some of the tech bros talking about this, and the three ways AI can pose a problem, the three classical ways, right? It can be in the hands of a bad acting person. It can become super intelligent and take over the world. Or the third way is we are so dependent on it that we're not making our own decisions. When we have a teenage boy at home or a teenage girl or a young adult at home, instead of making their own decisions, it's running everything by AI before they're making a decision. Imagine this generation when it's their time to run our country and the world, and we have a president that has been trained by using AI to make his decisions. So every decision is delegated to artificial intelligence. We can't be anymore. I think that might be the scariest of the three. So it's in the way we use it and in the way we are interacting with it. And the other part that really scares me is the information that is used to train the AI it's only as good as what you put into it, what we've fed it. If it's reacting based on that, how good is the output?
It brings to mind a lot of questions, which I'll get to, but to your earlier point around people just not learning, and I don't remember the details, but I think it was about a month or so ago where I came across an article that was talking about examining the brains of young people who
Yeah.
were using AI and how much to write a paper, for example, and how much that diminished their ability to learn
Critical
and
thinking.
retain the
Yeah.
information. But also scarier than that, they looked at the connections being, happening in their brain, and it was drastically reduced. And so, what does that do to our physical brain when these connections aren't happening on
And
a
imagine that
regular
over the
basis? You're
generations.
right. So do we then become computers ourselves at
Yeah.
some point, right? I think one of the other fears I have is things, because AI isn't just words, it's images and videos and voice and things like that. Things being created where you can't perceive whether it's real or not. And I think everybody from whatever area of life or work you're
Deepfakes.
in, you have fears around how it pertains to you. So as somebody who's been an advocate and has been outspoken on a lot of like injustice and social justice issues, and have had some resistance and some online bullying and some just trying to harm my reputation, let's say. And I think it's not new. It's a very common thing for people who are outspoken and take stances that other people may not. This is a new kind of, or anybody who's run for political office, for example, because everyone's looking for evidence or for proof to knock
Hey, I
you off
gotcha.
your game. Things can be produced to make it look like you're doing or saying some crazy shit, excuse my language, and it's not really you. But at that point, the damage is done. Now you have to prove that this wasn't real, this wasn't you.
So you took it all the way back to how we started the conversation. How does this affect an ordinary person, you or me? It's the use of your image and likeness and voice in a way that you are not allowing it. So I have news for you, which you might already know, actually, may not be news to you, but it was to me when I first read it. Every time you post a photo on a social platform, that, not all of them, but you need to read their terms of use. It's being used to train their AI. And that can be used, it might turn up in an ad without your consent, without you knowing exactly what you were saying, right?
So this already can happen. So if
Right.
I'm on Facebook or Instagram and I post a
Right.
picture of me and my sister,
Right.
like wearing sunglasses,
You could be selling drugs next day.
or advertising for sunglasses without our knowledge being used to,
Or guns.
Yeah.
Your favorite subjects.
far from it, but
Against everything that you're advocating for. That's what I meant to say.
Right.
Oh, yes, that is a concern. And publicity rights are there to protect you at state level, and it varies from state to state, but California is very robust. A right to your image and likeness and voice and how it's being used.
in California.
In California. Now, on the federal level, there's been a bill that has been introduced and is in the works called No Fakes Act, which would harmonize all the states and make it a federal law. And that you cannot use somebody's, exactly what you said, image and likeness without their consent. So it has not been passed yet, which is why we all have to be, going back to how we started the conversation, how we all have to be very diligent and aware of what's going on. And we can't be a passive consumer of this. This is going to affect all of us and our children and how our country, what kind of a country do we want to have? Do we want to be kind of, not to get political about it, but who is going to make decisions for us? How are we going to make our decisions?
And so this law hasn't been passed.
Not yet.
And if it hopefully passes, even though it's federal law, first of all, you can be charged with a federal crime for violating it. But also, as things tend to go, and there may be, I haven't seen the text of the bill in that detail, but it can have incentives for states to follow suit. Even without that, often federal law trickles down to various states. And so I think it's important to set the precedent on the federal level.
Right.
How likely is it that this law will be passed, especially now when we look at the socio-political context we're living in, where most of our political leaders are beholden to quite wealthy individuals and entities and corporations? Is that going to get in the way of us being protected from this powerful tool, which can be great or dangerous?
Don't you think that's a bipartisan issue? Everybody's
I
concerned.
do.
Everybody's concerned about that, right? I remember our president was talking about fake news, right? I think this is something that affects everybody.
Yeah.
And we just, we just have to be, as members of the electorate, we have to demand that or ask that of our representatives.
I just don't think we live in an era anymore where we can just focus on electing somebody because we believed in their policy platforms and then stepping back
No.
for 2
no.
years or 4 years.
We cannot
or
step
however
back.
Many.
Also, it's not, it would be easy to just shift the blame from, it's our representatives. But I think it's more than that, because the technology is moving so fast. It's hard to stay current with it. As an attorney, I have to keep with it all the time. And then I'm sure any area that you're in, if you're in the entertainment business, how it's affecting how you make content. And then with you as somebody who creates news, how is it affecting what you do? Or somebody in healthcare now, is AI going to read all our radiographs, and is it going to be making medical decisions for how we get treatment? I think that it's just moving so fast.
Yeah.
That we all have to try our best to stay up to date with it.
Yeah. Yep. And this thing you say about fake news, it's really interesting, because you and I were talking earlier about this concept that even though I personally, for example, don't agree with the way the president and some of his followers use the concept of fake news, but it's an actual thing, right?
He's right.
Yes,
He's right.
We live in.
Right.
I guess I don't agree with what he labels as fake news, but it prompts the question that I think because of AI and because of technology and because of these algorithms, we are, each of us, exposed to different realities based on what we click on, what we follow, and then we're just sent down a path, and that's all we see. And then we live in multiple realities. And how do you reconcile that in an age of AI when you're just following one line of thinking and it makes you biased towards that? I think as difficult as it is, and I say this all the time, is we have to very consciously do research on all points of view before forming and acting on our opinions, because there's so many
and
factors.
Communication, human communication. I was watching something about, in the age of AI, how do you guide your children in what career path? And I'll jump to the conclusion, basically soft human skills, right? No matter what you study, liberal sciences and extracurricular activities that we all had to do, right? No matter whether you were going into medicine or law or whatever profession you were choosing. So it really comes back to all of those things. AI can't replace those skills, right? Human interaction and reading the room and communication, which is what you're saying, communication, right?
Right.
We can't sit in front of our social media platforms isolated and just have the chatbot feed us things that give us dopamine hits. They agree with our point of view, right? Because that will keep us watching it more and never see anything different. I think that I read somewhere that Mark Zuckerberg and his wife don't allow their children to have smartphones.
I read that too.
Right. So
What does that tell you? And here we are buying kids cell phones at the age of 6.
I don't.
7.
I wasn't allowed to watch TV until I was out of college.
And I think you mentioned something that's really important. It came up with on another podcast that we were doing about education and institutions and things that are helpful and useful in our lives. But at the end of the day, how we use them and what we do with them has a lot to do with family and community and the places where you learn your values and where you learn these soft skills that are less and less honored in the society we live in today. Not honored by people, but honored by the institutions who would rather have you blindly just go to school, do your job, and not
I'm not
think.
sure though. But aren't the people with those skills the ones that are being rewarded time and over again?
With which skills?
With those soft skills that can communicate? Aren't leaders by definition good communicators and able to?
No, they should be. I think I'm talking more about. I think everybody's a leader in their own right, but I get your point. But I'm talking about average people, kids who are growing up in the age of AI and this technology and all these new developments. And
But everybody's having the same concerns though. You and I'm having this concern, you're having this concern. Some people are just flat out refuse to use it. There was an announcement by John Lee, who runs DC Comics. He said they're not going to use AI in any of the content that they create. So I think this issue with AI is a universal concern.
yeah,
So this is maybe this is one thing that we can all agree on, no matter
love
what
that.
political agenda you have. And then we have to anticipate that it's going to displace a lot of people, especially people with lower skills, whatever that, however way that is defined. So this is something that is going to affect all of us. So I think this is one thing that we can all agree on.
Yeah.
We're all scared to some level, to some degree. We all think about it. It's occupying a lot of our mental space. Everywhere I go, everybody's talking about AI. Everybody's asking me about AI, right? So that gives me hope.
Yeah. No, I hope you're right. And it's interesting. I keep thinking back. I came to see you on a panel a couple of weekends ago where you were talking about making movies in the age of AI. And there was somebody on the panel that I believe worked for a production company where he did a test. He gave an assignment to AI, some production and creative assignment, and he gave the same assignment to a number of interns, and then he gave the same assignment staff that had expertise in the field. And it was really fascinating to hear him discuss how, yes, AI was very efficient. It got things done blink of an eye almost compared to the other. And even though like it like checked off all the stuff on the list, but it didn't connect. It didn't do
No nuance.
as good a job just connecting to humans and human emotion, right? So I think for people who are creating any kind of content, we are still in an age where that human touch and that nuance that only like a human mind and heart can bring to whatever you're doing still comes through. And
Do you want to be taught by a robot?
I do not.
Do you want to be diagnosed by a robot?
I do not.
Do you want your lawyer to be a robot?
Right. So
Right.
it gives me hope. And it signifies that we still have time to put some
Definitely.
sensible guardrails around a tool that can be very powerful.
Yeah.
But it's incumbent upon us to make sure
Yeah.
those we elect to represent
Right.
us know how we feel over and over again.
Yes, we
Like
have to
one
we have
vote
to
is not
ask
enough.
them. We
Yeah.
have to ask them to do
You have
it.
to ask them. You have to call them. You have to sign those petitions.
have to stay
You have to
active.
go to the town halls.
And
you have to write
you
letters.
can't throw your hands and say it's going to take over the world and it's already done. It's not.
Yeah.
And also, we didn't even talk about how these large databases and all these LLMs and artificial intelligence, how much energy they consume. All
And here we are in this big environmental crisis.
all these plants that are supplying the energy for them. We're not talking about that. Where are they going to go? In what neighborhoods? Are we okay with all this? Where's the energy going to come from?
And speaking based on history and experience and knowledge, the communities that will be first hit and hardest hit with the environmental impact of AI are not going to be the wealthy communities who have enough to live in places where they're not impacted by the negativity.
I think it's going to affect all of us. Because even if you're not living in that immediate neighborhood, think what it's going to do on what burden is going to put on our resources and how much it's going to affect the cost of living. So these are all things that we all have to be, concerned about. And look, when Soros 2 came out, it had a policy of opt out. What do I mean by that?
Tell us what source.
So this AI that generates videos and photos, creatives. But we're going back to the creatives again. So this new technology or this AI came out and it had a policy of opt out. What does that mean? So if you didn't want your information to become public and be used for other things to be trained, you had to actually take the action of opting out. So default was opt in. You had to actually take action to opt out. And then all the creatives got concerned. So the guilds raised the issue. Guess what? It changed. Now it's default is opt out. You have to make the decision to opt in. And then even in the beginning with the guilds raising concern about AI use, they went on strike and the studios had to agree. So taking political action or having a stand does make a difference, right? We have laws in California that you can't use somebody's image without their consent, and even a deceased person, right? So these are things that happen because people were concerned. In EU, they have a law that went into effect, I think, August of 2025, where if you use AI in generating anything, you have to disclose it. So I think we were going to mirror that law here as well, but it didn't make it through. But you have to ask for it. You have to raise your voice. It makes a difference.
Yeah.
The worst thing you can do is give up and say, the world is going to be taken over by AI. We're done.
What can I do?
What can I do?
Yeah. I 100% agree with you. There's been a lot of talk, and we touched on it a little bit earlier about hallucinations and stuff, but also just about biases in AI, right? Because it is dependent on the information that human beings put in there. So it includes all of our biases, right? That may not be right, or not right. And so how do we correct for that?
Excellent question. Ties in with what we were just discussing. You have to stay engaged with it. If he makes a mistake, tell it. You're biased. You got to correct yourself. Correct the machine. Correct the information. So eventually it will become part of its database. So the more you feed it and correct it, eventually you have to tell it. Just like you correct it that the information that you're looking for needs to not be biased.
You almost have to treat it like you said, a person you're talking to, you're communicating with.
Right.
You can ask it questions and you can tell it what you think. And you can actually even go further than that and provide evidence and data and studies to back up what you think. So I think what gives me hope is, and correct me if I'm wrong, the answer, if you think AI is dangerous or biased, isn't to completely stay away from it. It's actually to engage with it more and make sure your perspective is represented.
And then also ask it to provide the credence, provide you the information, tell you where it got its information, give you references. So hold it accountable. So you can make sure that the information was licensed, it's clean, it's not biased, all the other problems that you just mentioned. And then also, I believe Adobe now tags its AI generated materials, telling you where information is coming from.
Yeah, that would be really helpful. My sister watches a lot of, what is it called, AI slop? Not on purpose. Sometimes she scrolls through social media, and she's a big animal lover. So she'll send me these
rabbit hole
funky videos of like cats dancing and birds doing
going down the
funny
rabbit hole.
stuff. And then it just takes you in, and some of it is funny, and then sometimes I'm like, oh my God, is this dangerous to just get sucked into AI slop? But that's really not the content that's worrying. You know what I mean? But I don't know if consuming that
Another thing it's now you can make your own adult content with AI and design it however way you want. Now, I don't know how you feel about that, but I find that very concerning.
I do too.
Yeah.
And with us not yet having the full protections, some states do, but even then you have to fight for those protections. I feel probably if something happens, that's quite scary.
I was listening to one of the, I don't know if I can use this word, tech bros, talk about CEOs of one of the, technology companies talk about AI, and he was saying that you have to treat it like a nuclear weapon. It can get dangerous, and you have to have laws and regulations on how it can be used and the disclosures and who can use it. So we really need lawmakers to step up. Just like anything.
Just like
Imagine a bomb being created and who has control of it and how is it being used. We're all concerned about it.
it's become so politicized, and I hope that this at least can be something that can be regulated for the general public good and not for people in power. That's my hope, and that's what I'll be advocating for. But I'm going to show you a video I want to get your reaction to.
Okay. Did you create this?
No. If I created this, I would be your client. Nadia and I watched the trailer for the 2004 movie I, Robot, which shows AI created robots that initially serve humans in support roles, but eventually seem to develop the ability to act independently and sometimes against the interests and will of their human overseers. You can find a link to the video in the description of this podcast. You get the picture? You seen this movie?
No, but I've heard it discussed. Yeah, apparently they did an experiment. This kind of reminded me of that. They told the various popular chat boxes, LLMs, about you're about to get dismantled by the CEO and we're going to replace you. And apparently, but then they gave them access to all the emails and all the various, databases of the company. And then it went through and read through all the emails and found out one of the CEOs was dating another person at the same company, and it started blackmailing. Yeah. Yeah. Without anybody teaching it that. So this is something that I read about. I'm not sure how accurate it is. But so, yes, we do need to be kind of diligent about how we manage the AI. Just like the A bomb. Imagine, 80 years ago, 60 years ago, with the first atomic bomb after World War II, how people were feeling. So I think we treat it the same way.
Yeah. Do you think everything we've heard talking to people who made these movies in the early 2000s and the 90s is our worst fears are going to come through?
It's here. It's not going to come true. It's here.
So do you think that AI could ever be totally independent of human beings?
So that were the 3 stages, right? We're at the LLM, then it becomes general skills, and then it becomes super intelligent. So that is coming. Apparently it's coming. According to people who make the technologies, is coming. It's not here yet, but apparently it's coming.
Why would we do this? Create something that can destroy us. You could ask the same thing about the A-bomb, but it's almost like we're knowingly doing it. We know it's coming, but we're going to keep doing it.
I think you need to speak to a philosopher and ethicist about that, or a psychologist more than a lawyer. But yeah, why were we doing it? Think about all right, let's compare it to atomic bomb, right? It does have its uses and energy, right, that we wouldn't have otherwise. You can think of AI, it's already helping medicine and is detecting things in in, radiology readings of cancer radiographs, and then also in development of new medicines. It does have its use, and you can't stop it, just like you can stop Napster, and you can before that you can stop the radio, you can stop video, you can stop the internet, you can stop Napster, you can stop the streaming platforms. So you can't stop it. You have to adapt. Now, hopefully we can do it quickly enough, and in a way where we keep up with it, and we do it in a way that it protects our morals and values, and the loss of jobs and the retraining of the workforce is, I think one of the other CEOs was talking about how maybe there needs to be a universal living expense for everyone with the AI coming through, We can't stop it. That's not an option.
Yeah. It goes back to the beginning of our conversation around needing to really advocate and keep on advocating for some guidelines and legal protections around it for everybody's good.
So we have to remain an optimist. We have no other choice.
Yeah.
We can't stop it, so that's not an option. And we can't fight it. That's not an option. So the other option, in my opinion, is to stay positive, look for all the good things it can do, and then by staying positive, hopefully we can make the changes and enact the laws that can affect us.
Yeah.
If we just say, oh, it's done, it's over, then there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And it's not quite that simple. Like we discussed all the different issues it has, right? The energy resources that it takes, and the copyright issues, and all the other things we discussed.
Yep.
So I think we just have to, like you said, keep on advocating.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's like all the other issues. When I chose to do racial justice and criminal justice advocacy and reform work, people asked me, this is such a huge problem. How are you going to fix it? And I think we give away our own power. And if every single one of us on this planet thought, we can't do anything about this, we can't do anything about racial justice, we can't do anything about economic justice, we can't do anything about the environment. Imagine that, right? What kind of place we would live in. What kind of place we would live in if our ancestors had given up.
Or if we had given up on science and never looked to the causes of disease, or we wouldn't have the scientific progress. We wouldn't be here. We would still be in our caves.
Yeah, I agree with you. One reason I started this platform and this podcast is, as frustrated as I am with a lot of the things I see in this world and a lot of the public conversation that's happening, I can't lose hope. And I don't want other people to lose hope either, right? It might be really dark for a while. It might be good for a while, but these things come in.
But even when you think it's dark, there are good things happening.
100%.
Like I said, even right now with AI,
100%.
it's helping medicine. It's going to automate a lot of tasks that are redundant and none of us want to do, just like how Industrial Revolution happened, right? We don't want to plow our farms with, in the old-fashioned way with animals and wooden tools. So same thing. So I'm sure at some point in the future, with a lot of bumps and side, roads, we're going to get to a point where we're going to say, oh, the old Industrial Revolution, there was another progress, leap by leaps and bounds, and we got through it. But if I had to choose, I wish I was born later. Once we had gone through all those growing pains, we're probably going through the growing pains 100%, at the moment, right?
100%. So let me ask you this about yourself.
My least favorite subject, the most boring part.
I doubt that. Before you found yourself as a leading attorney, entertainment attorney in Los Angeles, working on these different platforms and on these different issues, what values or moments or incidents in your life informed who you are today before you were doing the work that you're doing that's so needed and critical for many industries, right? Who was Nadia? What happened in Nadia's life? What values did she learn? What has she gone through that led her to this path?
Wow. So I think it all goes back to the family, right? The microenvironment. And for me, it was my grandparents and my mom, and being raised by people who were genuinely good people and had a good heart and wanted to help. As cliche and cheesy as that may sound, they always had, in whatever capacity. I don't think you need to be running a company or be a doctor or lawyer or whatever professional to do good or help. I think you can do it in anywhere you are, doing whatever it is you're doing. If smiling at someone or being nice at the cashier, checkout at the grocery store, right? I think it was growing up with that. So
Yeah.
with those values
Yeah.
and those kind of ethics and morals.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important. And I think in a world where, unfortunately, a lot of people who have the microphone are trying to vilify compassion, empathy, and care, I think we just need to remind people that some of the people doing the coolest and most important things in our world are doing them because their roots were in those values and in that compassion and that truthfulness and integrity and caring for people. So it doesn't matter what field you choose, entertainment, academia, electrician.
Yeah, but right, exactly. You need to do whatever you're doing with integrity.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. It doesn't matter what you do. But I also try and put myself in somebody else's shoes, even somebody that I can't completely see myself as, maybe someone who is male, who had a different upbringing, who is very much into sports. I'm just making up a character. And try and relate and see what is driving them. It could be very much that we're all having the same concerns. We're starting at the same point, but arriving at different endpoints to address those issues. And I think by maybe going back to all of us, our humanity, somebody who does not want to have immigrants, it could be that they're concerned about their job, something we're all concerned about, and AI, and reframing it and showing in different perspectives might help all of us, no matter how you view the issue.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not an expert in this.
No, I think we all have valid opinions. And I think what I've heard from you and a lot of other people who've been on the show is that communication is key. Human to human communication is key. And being open to communication is key.
And also having an open mind to understand.
And not always presuming the worst about people that we don't really know.
Exactly. Presuming.
Unless they've proven themselves. But often we just
But
jump to conclusions.
99% of the time, people who might have different political views, different opinions, different upbringing, we're all human after all. We all have the same basic concerns. So maybe looking at it from stepping back and biases, checking our own biases from every direction, not
100%.
just in one way.
Yeah.
So
100%. So Nadia, what is one conversation that you want to reset? It doesn't have to do with anything we've talked about. It can be serious. It can be not so serious. Something that you see out there that makes you think, you're like, that's not right. We got to level set this thing.
Can we see more comedies rather than horror and action?
I think we all need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
There is so much serious conversation and information and images that we're exposed to that I think we all forget the lighthearted side of ourselves.
Let's bring back joy.
Yeah, and I think that's gotta fuel us and give us energy so we can fight the fights and go forth and make sure that things are done the right way with our elected officials with the policies they
And
set.
compromise.
Yeah.
My right way might be the wrong way for
Yeah.
someone else, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Compromise.
But I think that lightheartedness, to have a little bit of whatever joy, it could be comedy, it could be spending time with your family, it could be just reading a good book or watching your favorite stand-up comic. I think that fuels you for all the other things you have to do.
Or a nice piece of, dessert.
A glass of wine. To be continued, my friend.
Continued.
I want to thank you so much for being here today and sharing your expertise.
Thank you for having
I
me.
learned a lot. I'm going to work to remain hopeful around AI, but also be cognizant of the ways that I use it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank
Thank
you
you for having
again.
me.
That's it for us today. Thank you for joining. I hope you take this conversation into your world and reset what you can. Please follow us on social media platforms and subscribe to Reset Critical on all the places where you watch and listen to podcasts. Until next time, stay hopeful. Thanks for tuning in to Reset Critical. Remember, the opinions you heard today belong to our guests and don't necessarily reflect the views of the institutions they represent, the host, producers, or our sponsors and affiliates. Mentions of products or organizations aren't endorsements. We're here to spark ideas and dialogue. Until next time, take care and keep thinking critically.